Hey guys, so you guys really enjoyed the video I did on the lowest rated movies that I love, and actually before I'd even filmed that and I was talking to my boyfriend about it, he suggested that I do the highest rated movies that I don't love or don't like, and a lot of you guys suggested that as well in the comments after I posted that video. So I had already been planning this video ever since coming up with that idea. So today we're going to do the opposite of that video, and we're going to be talking about the movies that are highly rated, specifically on Rotten Tomatoes, and that I don't like. Basically movies that I believe to be overrated. So this list was by far harder to make than the last one because there's lots of low rated movies that I really enjoy. But with looking at all of Rotten Tomatoes' highest rated horror films, it's like they either belong there because I agree that the movie is really good and deserving of a high rating, or we got some weird ones in there that are just like odd that they would get such a high rating, like Sharknado. So in that video of the lowest rated movies, I did a score of 20% or lower. So this time we're going to be looking at 80% or higher. And given that score, I could only come up with 8 movies on my list. Yes, 8. I mean, some of them are even reaches for me that I like generally enjoy them, but they're, I just think, overhyped for what they actually are and deserve a lower score compared to like movies on my other list of the lowest rated, I think deserve a higher score. Since I only have 8 on my list, we are actually going to have Emma come on here. Now, I was asked a couple weeks ago to be featured on her channel at the end. I will link the video that I am in down below. She does a series on her channel called That Scene, and you basically discuss the most disturbing scenes that you have seen that have stuck with you. So I talked about my most disturbing scene that I have ever seen in her video. So I asked her to be a part of this video and talk about 3 movies / shows, whatever she felt like talking about, and she will come in at the end of this video and talk about her highest rated, least favorite movies / show. So you'll have more than 10 things total on the list since I could not come up with 10 movies for mine. This one will be a little bit more controversial because I'm sure I'm going to name some of your guys' favorite movies, and that's okay. The thing is, horror is just about opinion. It's a subjective type of genre. We all like different things. I made this disclaimer in the last video, so I'm gonna be a little repetitive here. But it's all subjective. This is just my opinion, of course. It does not mean anything about these movies specifically. Last time I went from highest rated to lowest. This time we're gonna go the opposite. I'm gonna start with those that are around 80% and go all the way up to the highest rating that I didn't like, because I feel like that one will be, well, actually it's not that controversial, but the ones towards the end will be a little bit more controversial because they are so highly rated, and I'm gonna say that I didn't like them, so let's get going. First up, we have Ouija, Origin of Evil. I know, why is this on this list? How is this at 80%? I really question some of the rating systems. After looking through the highest rated, I agreed with most of them, but then I'm like, why are movies like Ouija, Origin of Evil on here? I should also mention that a lot of these movies I haven't seen in a while and don't have any interest in rewatching them, so I'm not gonna give like recaps or anything, or, you know, be very specific as to why I didn't like them because it's been a minute. But just know my initial impression of these films was overrated. Although some of these I think you'll agree with me, like this first one, Ouija, Origin of Evil. Why is this at 80%? And 13 Ghosts is so low. What? Next up, this is a controversial one. We have Sleepaway Camp. This is one that is recommended to me a lot. It is at 81%, and it is said to be like a classic movie, and I just didn't like it that much. I don't know, there is like a big twist in it, and that is kind of interesting for the era, I guess, but it just was a little bit of a letdown for how hyped it really was, so this is just a pass from me. Next, we have a very artistic movie in Goodnight Mommy. This comes in at 85%. This one was just a little too weird, a little too artistic. I like to think that I like really artsy movies, and then I watch stuff like this, or like, what's the one? A Cure for Wellness. Stuff like that. I guess I'm not really into those kind of artsy films. I don't know. I guess I'm just more particular when it comes to like really arty films like that. So Goodnight Mommy was just a little bit too weird. I didn't really follow the story. I can't even remember what it's about. It's just so strange, and overall I don't think it's that scary or you know, disturbing or anything. So I just don't think it deserves an 85%. So my fourth film on this list is probably going, not the most controversial actually. And I say controversial, but it's not that, it's just my opinion. So I hope it's not like too shocking, but I have voiced this opinion before. It's not well received, so brace yourselves. Okay, The Autopsy of Jane Doe. I know, tons of people love this film and it is good. I just didn't get the hype. I was so confused why everyone thought this was such a great film, and it was okay, like it was good. Oh, I should tell you the percentage. It is at 87%. That's pretty high. I would say it deserves like a 70. I don't know. It felt kind of average to me, like, but of course feel free to disagree with me. Leave a comment if you do. Next up we have Don't Breathe. This comes in at 88%. This also was confusing to me because it just was kind of one of those average films and I wasn't that impressed when I saw it in theaters. Did I review this? If I did, I'll link it. Again, it's one of those that I feel like are just overhyped a little bit, and it was entertaining. Like I was, you know, very entertained throughout, but it wasn't scary. It was just more like suspense, obviously, and I don't know. I felt like there were plot holes throughout it and just it didn't make sense sometimes, the story, so I just don't think it deserves, what was it again, 88? That is so high. Again, maybe a 70, maybe 65. I'm gonna be mean a little bit. I just didn't like it that much. Okay, so this next one, it's not even the highest rated on this list, but it is definitely the most, I think my opinion is so in the minority and I just don't get it. Let me know, like explain it to me a little bit. Revenge. Okay, this is 92%. I don't understand that at all. There are I mean, I could get into it. There are just so many things about this that I didn't like. There were so many plot holes and like inconsistencies throughout in the plot that just make no sense. Like, I don't want to get into it because it's gonna spoil things, but like, she didn't even have lines for 3/4 of the film. Like which maybe some people, you know, believe that's an artistic choice and it shows her ability as an actress to portray emotions and things without words. But it is just so, that storyline is impossible. And obviously we want revenge, obviously based on the title, we want that for her, but I just was so let down, like so disappointed, and so many people love this film, and I know even Emma loves this. I'm sorry, Emma, but you listed 2 movies on your list, on your, you know, 3 things that I love. So we're gonna agree to disagree. But that's kind of what I love about horror and like just the genre in itself and the differences that people have and what they look for in movies, what scares them, what excites them, and things like that. And I just find that so fascinating that we can just watch the same movie and have 2 completely different experiences. I think that's really cool, but I just didn't have a good experience watching Revenge, sorry. Next one I really didn't like, and I'm very confused why it's so highly rated, and I mean that goes without saying for this whole list. Drag Me to Hell. Now this is one of those where it's been a minute since I have seen it, so please forgive me for not having a real reason why. I just remember not liking it when it finished, and I was like, I think it was the ending, to be honest. Like, I just was so disappointed, and it's rated the same as Revenge, 92%. How are these 2 movies in the 90s? Obviously these movies are well loved by other people, and that's totally fine because I love movies that people think are shitty, so it's not a big deal. And now for my last movie on the highest rated movies that I didn't like is Last Shift. This comes in at 100%. This is why I'm like, what critics are reviewing? I mean, it's not, you know, consistent and like the same throughout all films, obviously, because that would probably be impossible. So what critics are giving Last Shift 100%? I enjoyed the film, don't get me wrong. I'm just confused why it gets a perfect score and then the movies on my lowest rated don't even get above 50%. Like, they're not even above 20%. Yet Last Shift is 100. This is why Rotten Tomatoes is arbitrary to me. This is why numbers and ratings and scores do not matter, because it is so not accurate as to whether I'm personally gonna like a movie or not. Maybe you use it for reference. Some movies I really love are so lowly rated that if I went off of that, I would never get to experience those films. And then if I used it for the highest rating, I would be disappointed sometimes. I think once in a while it's good to get others' opinions, of course, especially if you've agreed with them in the past about certain things, but generally you know, go into it for yourself. If you're curious about a film, watch it. Who cares if it's supposed to, you know, said to be super bad? It doesn't matter. And also, don't be afraid to speak your mind when a highly rated movie comes out and you just aren't a fan. It's okay to not follow the hype. If you don't like Get Out, that's fine. It's, you know, not a flawless film by any means. I love it, and of course it's so, I don't know why I'm using Get Out as an example. I think it's because it was so hyped and so loved by the horror community. But there are plenty of people who don't like it, so don't ever feel like you're alone in not liking a highly rated film, because opinions are, you know, we all got them. And they're all subjective and arbitrary in the big picture. It really doesn't matter. Just watch whatever you want to watch. Enjoy whatever entertainment and content you want to enjoy. Who cares what other people think? But with that being said, let's hear another opinion on my channel. We're gonna get into Emma's highest rated, least favorite films. Here we go.
Hi guys, my name is Emma, also known as Spooky Astronauts here on YouTube, and when Sarah asked me to be in this video, I was ecstatic. I do a lot of horror reviews and it's very evident when my opinion differs from the general public, so I'm excited to talk about a few thoughts, ideas, rants about some highly rated horror that I have a low opinion of. And a huge thank you to Sarah for having me on her channel. I have been a fan of Sarah before I started YouTube, so I'm so psyched to be here. The first film I want to talk about is the American-British period horror movie called Apostle. This movie, everyone went nuts over last year. It got in a lot of people's top 10s of 2018. A lot of people went nuts over the visuals and said that it was a very unique story. I don't agree with that so much, but a lot of people really like these films that involve folklore and also ones that are very cultish. The film is directed by Gareth Evans and it received 3 nominations at the Fright Meter Awards, which is where it premiered. From there, it went straight to Netflix 1 month later, and it sits with a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. The film is about a man who goes to this island to find this cult that apparently has his sister. The biggest problem I found with this film was the one-dimensional characters, but that was because there was too many of them, and I felt like it really spread itself thin trying to do character development. You were switching back and forth between characters and what they were doing, and it felt very much like a TV show, the subplots. And don't get me wrong, subplots are great, but when you have, you know, 5 different groups, it gets kind of confusing when it's meant to be one kind of flowing storyline. And because the characters weren't set up properly, they were very one-dimensional. There was good and then there was bad. There was no kind of in between. And this is a really dangerous thing to do in horror, because if you have good and bad characters, everything becomes very predictable. They're killing off the good characters to make the bad ones seem worse. And I feel like it was just a really silly way to kind of tell the story, and very simple, and really dumb down the audience. And unfortunately, as a result of this, all of the cult-like behavior and the really cool parts, I don't want to spoil it, but there's some really cool parts, really taking a back seat to the subplots and the weird character development. And I felt like that could all be cut out and it should just be about the hero and, you know, these things on the island, me trying not to spoil it. But instead it became this back and forth fight, a slow burn, people will say. But for me, I just don't buy it, man. Another film I get a lot of questions about is the 2015 anthology horror film, which is Southbound. A lot of people really love this film, but for me, that's baffling. The film actually sits at 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, or tomatoes. We say tomatoes in Australia. This is another film that's actually been dubbed by reviewers as artistic and unique. But for me, that's the same thing as calling the crack den down the street a character home. The plot involves connecting stories from 5 different travelers going down this highway one night. And I will say anthology horror movies are hard, well, anthology movies in general, because by the time you sink your teeth into it, it just is the next story. So it is hard to do that. And especially if you're going to fit that into an hour and a half, 5 different stories, that's pretty insane. There are some good anthology horror movies, don't get me wrong. I would argue 3 Extremes is probably the best anthology horror movie, or if you want to take it into series, The Masters of Horror, great series. But this is just wrong. The issue of this film is because it is a horror movie, they are really inclined to the twist. And the twist for these stories is that they're connecting. And that's kind of the ultimate twist, and that's really sloppy and sad. I will say it's really cool the way they do connect it all, but it doesn't justify the sloppy work within the film. I feel like the special effects came on way too hard and just were unnecessary. The entities look like rip-off versions of Dementors in Harry Potter, really bad versions of that. Also, I would say the acting was quite off for most of them, and the dialogue was very stereotypical, which sucks in a horror movie. Don't do that. Why would you do that? I did really like the story about the girls who are in a band and they go to that creepy house with those strangers. But again, the ending or the twist or the reveal, just as you're getting into these characters, is that she runs out to the street and then that goes to the next story. So although it's kind of cool to have them connecting, it doesn't really work as a masterpiece if the stories in between aren't great. And you could totally have a great idea and poor execution, and I think that that's what's happened here. The last thing I want to talk about really quickly is not a movie, but it's actually a TV series. It's the decline, the slow, or is it rapid decline of the Walking Dead TV series. I'm keeping this just to the series, so forget the comic books for 1 second. But as a TV series, this just does not work. Sure, I'm gonna give it to you. The first 2 seasons were great. It was very interesting. But zombies as a TV show just cannot work because it's a never-ending cycle, and I guess it could work if they were original with it, but that's not what they're doing with The Walking Dead. It's become this tired old formula. They group up, they find a new place, old people come, bad people come, and then it's like on to the next. And every season's like that. I'll get to Negan in a second, but every season's like that. And do you ever realize when you're watching The Walking Dead, it's become less about the zombies themselves and more about the drama, the constant drama that's going on, and it's exhausting. And then we get to Negan. And let me just remind you that this does have an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. Spoiler alert, I'm not gonna give away names though, but he, you know, kills off a lot of the main cast and people keep watching. You spent years growing with this cast and growing with this story. It is not an anthology TV series. Why are we killing off people like this? I know, because there's nothing else to frickin' do, because it's The Walking Dead and they're stuck in this loop if there's no solution to the situation. But it's like horror fans have this crazy masochistic tendency where they just like to be tortured over and over by watching everything they ever loved being torn apart. It's like watching the dog die over and over. What are we doing? So in my opinion, The Walking Dead was just... Even the cast are leaving the show. This show is awful. It needs to end. And people who love Negan, I mean, he looks great. He's an aesthetic. He's a mood, but I just can't. And no, I have not watched past where, you know, new things happen to Negan, because I could not get past that season when he was just destroying people and we were just sitting and watching every single episode. Anyway, my rant is over. The Walking Dead is a poor formula and it cannot be resurrected. We should just turn the TV off because you guys, you deserve better. We deserve better. Anyway, thank you for having me to rant and rave on your channel, Sarah. It was really good to get these feelings and emotions out. And if you guys agree with us or don't agree with us, please let me know down below because I'd love to hear your opinions. Thank you so much for having me on here, Sarah. It's been a dream come true. I really appreciate it. Bye!
So please leave a comment down below. What are your most overrated films that you just didn't like? Leave that in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed and I will talk to you soon.